Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to the Money Factor. There are a number of factors in getting a job, and with today's guest, with whom we've already covered several of them, such as resumes and networking, we're going to be talking about something that often is kind of under the radar. We're talking about volunteering and internships, two things that can be very helpful in getting a job that many people never think about. And with us again today is Dr. Thomas Denham from Careers in Transition. He's coming back for a repeat performance.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be back.
You're turning into kind of a local careers expert.
I'd like to think so. It puts food on my table.
That's great. Today's show is something I think a lot of people haven't really thought about in terms of something that they should do, unless this is new in colleges. I graduated long ago.
Yeah. Well, my dissertation is actually on internship programs. And what I can tell you is that when I was in college many, many years ago, only about 2% of college students were doing an internship. Now the number is 2/3 to 3/4 are doing internships, and they're doing multiple internships. They're doing 2 and 3 internships because a college degree is not as valued as it once was. So you have to come to the table with education plus experience.
And that fits what you're just saying. I don't have experience from your perspective, but as a library, we've generally lately had 1, if not 2, interns at the same time working here.
Yeah. Well, you know, the real issue when you're either doing an internship or volunteering is you probably have a gap between where you are and where you want to be. So by doing an internship or volunteering, you're closing that gap.
I wanted to start out with the question, trying to figure out how do we deal with both of these topics when, in a way, internship has a lot of points for it, and volunteers is a little more, I don't know, hazy maybe you would say, because it's not something that everybody thinks about to do, and internship at least has an organized structure to it.
Right.
So the question is, what's the difference? What's maybe a few similarities? And as we go on through our half hour, we can maybe when we find something that fits with the other one, we can point it out.
Yeah, sure. The most important thing I can tell you is the answer is it depends.
That sounds thoughtful, but
it depends. So an internship can be structured. It's typically more structured than volunteering.
Right.
It can be for credit. It might not be for credit.
So in a way, you get paid and you pay for it.
It may be paid. It may be unpaid. So, for
Oh.
example, when I was at the director of the Siena College Career Center, we had School of Business internships that were both paid and for credit.
So they went out into the community and
They went out in the
paid.
community and they were also paid.
All right.
Internships tend to be for short-term time frames, 1 semester, 2 semesters, summers. Volunteering can be more open-ended. The emphasis on an internship as opposed to a part-time job is the emphasis is on learning versus earning. When you have an internship, usually you have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You might have some kind of orientation. You would have a supervisor. You would have more structure, more laid out job descriptions, higher level responsibility. That could also happen, that's why the answer is it depends, could happen in a volunteer type of situation. Internships are typically designed for younger people just entering a career. Volunteer opportunities can be done throughout a lifetime. So for example, if you retire and you wanted to volunteer, that would certainly be an option.
Right, but then that would have a different purpose probably. Now you're putting your experience to work for the community and giving back.
Right, so we have to go back and we have to decide what are our goals. For somebody that is a new college graduate, having that internship can make them more marketable. Some students are doing what are called postgraduate internships. If they can't find a job, they're going and they're interning to gain experience, hoping to get hired by that employer.
Now, in that case, is it formally through the college or university, or is it?
It could be a continuation of their internship, or it could be a new internship. Volunteering could be somebody who has lost their job that wants to get into another job or wants to transition and does the volunteer experience versus an internship.
I wanted to start with the volunteers because it seems like that's more flexible, it's more open-ended, it's in a way more creative because everything falls on the person, all the responsibilities to define what they wanted to get out of it, what's acceptable. It seems like they would be susceptible to being used.
Right.
Whereas an internship is very structured. Somebody's watching.
It depends.
Just like you said.
So for example, there are some really great A-plus internships out there, and there are some internships that are not well designed. You get out of an intern what you put into it. So if you have a very structured program, you have a job description, you have regular meetings, you have supervision, you're working in concert with the school.
And maybe some professional people that you would like to emulate.
That's right. So if you have that kind of a program, you're going to get a lot more out of the intern. If you have this person come in and you say, here's your desk, do this filing and photocopying, that person is not going to be inspired to do higher level work. And the interns are really your ambassadors for your organization too. So many of the student interns will come back to campus and say, thumbs up or thumbs down. This is a really great internship. I'm getting a lot of responsibility.
And then they put it on their blog.
Or they put it on their blog, that's right, or they tell their friends. And if they tell their friends, they tell their other friends. And then next year, when that company is trying to recruit somebody, then it becomes more difficult because then now they've got this reputation that the internship is not what it's cut out to be.
I want to get back to the volunteers and really kind of beat that to death.
Yeah.
How do you keep from being used? That's kind of like the one thing that I said. How do you go into this? You're saying, okay, I feel that I have a bridge, or I have a gap to bridge. I don't have experience. I can't show them what I've done. I think I can do it. Maybe I need to learn something. But I want to find a place that's going to really help me.
Sure.
How do you start?
Well, the first
You're
thing,
just sitting there.
The first thing you should do is you should read my article called Volunteer into a Career. And the very first thing we talk about is you've got to decide what your goals are. What is your goals for this volunteer experience? So when you're clear on that, then you can tell the organization these are the things that I want to pursue.
Communication.
Yes, communication is absolutely key. Some organizations are very much set up for volunteers, and then other ones are startled when they hear that you want to volunteer for them.
And that opens a door to some other interesting questions if you're going in that direction.
Yeah, when you're volunteering, you have to decide how many hours am I going to devote to this. Is this going to be 5 hours? Is this going to be 10 hours a week? Is it going to be 5 hours a month? What are my responsibilities and duties going to be? Are there other things, once I do some of these entry-level, initial office responsibilities, are there things that I can grow in? The most important thing when it comes to volunteering is that you pick an organization that you feel passionate about.
That word, passionate, that could scare people.
Well, it's something that's closest to your heart.
Okay.
Now, for example, there's so many great nonprofits around here, but some of them I just can't get passionate about. And so if I'm not passionate about it, I'm not going to want to go to that.
So it's something you admire, something you could say,
Right.
yes, I would be interested in doing that. I think that's a good thing.
Yes. So for example, one of my passions is hiking and climbing. So to volunteer at the Adirondack Mountain Club, that would be something that would be extremely worthwhile. Whereas some other maybe healthcare related, disease related nonprofit, it just doesn't stir my heart.
And this reflects back on something you said a couple programs ago. I'm not sure exactly which one anymore, but you taught me about A-level jobs and B-level jobs, and I need to make some money to eat.
The ideal, the backup are realistic, and then the survival or safety.
And I guess that's where the passionate threw me for a second.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about those three things.
So the volunteer experience, you also have to decide how long you're going to do this. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to volunteer, and then they're either in it for a short term or they're in it for eternity. So I usually say, are you going to be doing this for a year? Is it going to be 3 to 5 years, or is it going to be more than that? And what kind of capacity? In any kind of volunteer or internship, what happens is you start off and you idealize the internship, and then over time you sort of devalue it. You get bored. So that's why you want to set up what your goals are. Perhaps from the volunteer experience and the internship, you can get a letter of recommendation. Very important if you're trying to transition into another career or job. The volunteer opportunity is really for people who don't have time to do a 25-hour internship. So, for example, at Siena, many of the
So that would be like
students
25 hours a week.
at Siena, many of the
Okay.
students are doing 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So that's quite a bit.
You wouldn't do that when you had a full-time job.
I don't think so. And if you've
Yeah.
got 2.3 kids in a house,
Right. Forget it.
that's not going to work. A couple hours a month, yeah, that might work. That's going to be a bridge of experience that you can put on the resume. So maybe you have this job here, but you want to be up here. By having that volunteer experience on them, you're really saying, I'm making a statement and telling you that this is the direction that I really want to go in.
Sounds good. Now, do you have any advice for the person on a slightly different problem? I could imagine you would go somewhere and you would want to volunteer, and they might not start you out working with the president on the top secret plan for the
Right.
next 5 years. On the other hand, you don't want to be sweeping the floor. So, and maybe you shouldn't expect on the first day to be doing everything that you might be doing after a couple months. How do you get your expectations and think about that when you accept it or don't accept it?
I think
or-
that's what has to happen in the first either couple days or before you even accept the volunteer experience. And I probably would get these things in writing. Why don't you, together with your supervisor, and you are going to have a supervisor, chart out what your top 10 responsibilities are going to be?
That's a nice word. Chart out doesn't sound like a contract, because I wouldn't want to scare them and say, I need a contract. But chart out sounds very easy.
This is a volunteer agreement. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. This is how many hours a week. So you're on the same page. Because sometimes people start off volunteering and they have a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and they do that for a couple months, and then you never see them again. Life got in the way, something came up, and then they don't come back.
So the company has perhaps wasted some time.
Perhaps the person wasted some time too. I don't necessarily see it as a waste of time for anyone, because you can always learn from it. If somebody gets into a volunteer experience or an internship and they don't like it, a lot of my students would say, oh, I didn't learn anything. Oh, yes, you did. You learned that that's not the field for you.
Okay.
So you learned that you shouldn't do an internship like that ever again.
And there was
you
negative
learned that,
passion.
That's right. You learned that you should look for different qualities in a supervisor next time.
Right, and maybe a little bit about interacting with people and maybe what you did right, what you did wrong.
You have to think about, how can I get the most out of this internship or volunteer experience? And if you set the parameters up ahead of time, you're on the same page in terms of expectations.
Do you think some people have irrational expectations?
Yes, I do. I don't know if it's most people, but many people do. But I have to give people a lot of credit for taking the initiative to go and volunteer. It takes a lot of courage to do that. You're approaching, either by the internet or by phone or through a letter, an organization where you may or may not know anyone, and you're basically the new kid on the block, and you come in and you say, I'm a volunteer. You may have lots of experience in another career. Now you have to basically start over. So if I, with my 3 degrees of education, Dr. Tom comes to the library and I want to volunteer, I might be shelving books.
Well, that is what we do a lot of, although I'm sure you'd be qualified for more.
I might be qualified for
You could do a
lot
TV
more.
show?
I could do a TV show. I could host a TV show, but you probably wouldn't start me off there. You'd want to see if I was successful with little things first before you gave me the big things. And you'd also want to see if I was sticking around too.
Well, that's important, but I would really be interested in what skills you have and an honest way to, should I say, exploit them, use them.
Right. If we're going to go down this road, let's say I did volunteer here. I could take your job.
Well,
I could do the money factor.
I
could do the money
factor.
I could do the money factor, and that would free up your time to do other things.
I actually enjoy the show, so I don't do it because I have to.
I'm going to talk to your boss about this.
But
that would be an example
of
using my talents. So part of your responsibility is to identify what my talents is. Part of my responsibility is to tell you what I think my talents are. Right. So that's that self-awareness or the self-assessment.
And I wish we could bring in all the stuff that we talked about on networking on another previous episode of this, because it sounds like that's what you're describing when you go to write a letter, send an email, make a phone call, try to discuss your skills and how a volunteer position there might benefit both of you and the organization.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Got to go back now. 3 steps of career development: self-assessment, career exploration, action plan. Networking is the action plan over here. So self-assessment, you're looking at your skills, values, interests, and personality traits, and you're matching those with options. So let's say that there were 3 types of jobs or careers that you wanted to enter, and your methodology was going to be, I'm going to volunteer into this career. Once I get in the door, people are going to know me, they're going to know my results, and if there's an opening, they're going to look at me first. Or they may know some other people at a similar organization. So let's go with the library theme. So I am interested in library science, and I meet you at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to send you a letter, an email, or I'm going to make a phone call and say, I would like to sit down with you and talk about volunteering here at the library. So I come in and I network. I know you through networking. I get a volunteer experience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to volunteer at the library for 1 year.
That's a long time. 1 year.
I'm going to do 2 Saturdays a month for 6 hours each. How's that?
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. Every 3 months, I want to sit down and see how I'm doing. I want a progress. I want an evaluation. At the end of the year, we're going to evaluate again.
And I'd suggest a little more often. That'd be fine.
But because I am working full-time, I might not be able to do that.
Oh, I didn't mean working. I meant to talk about progress.
Oh, right. We could do that. We could do that once a month. Mm-hmm. So now we're setting up these expectations. Well, now I come in and I'm doing these things, and now you know what I'm doing? I'm going home and I'm working on my resume.
Right.
I'm putting everything that I do on here. And when I get all those things down, I'm going to ask for more responsibility so I can put these other things down, because my goal is to get into library science. So this internship, the more I have down here.
Or volunteer.
Or volunteer, sorry, yes.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay. That's really your book there, the internship.
That's right. You can tell where I'm going with that. The other thing is that you invite me to a library conference. And so I go to the library conference and I meet people there, and then you introduce me to somebody at the Bethlehem Public Library, because there's no job opportunities here, and there's a part-time job over there. And now I've got this resume with the volunteer experience. You're providing a warm opportunity because you know people over there. I go over, I get the interview, and I get the job. So now I've gone from an apple into an orange. I have changed, I have re-careered myself. And the volunteer experience was absolutely critical, and then you couple it with what you said with the networking, and that's how you do it.
Great.
But if I was to try to go from, being who I am into a librarian, it's very hard to do that.
And, you would find out right away without the degree. We just can't even do it.
That's right.
Can't go there.
That's right. So you're also teaching me things as a volunteer. I'm learning that I need to have a Master in Library Science. I need to have this amount of years of experience. I need to have experience at the reference desk. I need to have experience in children's services. I need to have experience in circulation.
But that MLS is the key to certain jobs, and that's just the price of entry.
Now, if I was interning or volunteering at another organization, they might say, you don't need a graduate degree. or you need this graduate degree.
Right.
And
or
so,
a certification that you can get.
right. So, you know, what the internship or the volunteer experience is, again, about learning. You're learning about a field. So you're basically going in and saying, I'm stupid, I know nothing about this field, teach me everything that you know. And it can be a great experience. I did an internship when I was on a semester abroad program in London in an art gallery.
Oh, that sounds
And I was an
fantastic.
economics major. Oh, it's fantastic, absolutely.
Wow.
I knew nothing about art, so I was just there, I was stupid, and I was a sponge, and I'd ask lots of questions, and I was able to build my resume. I've done
jealous on
internships
that
it was once in a lifetime. Did an internship in the New York State Legislature. So those can be very valuable experiences. When I got out of college, I was a volunteer at the Harvard Art Museum. I've also volunteered at the Albany Institute of History and Art. And so those have all been enriching things. They don't have to be just for career. They can just be things that you enjoy doing.
That's a real community spirit.
Right, and you give back. And the more you give, the more you get. That's the other thing with the internship. A lot of students go in and they say, what can I get, what can I get? And really, you get when you give. If you go to the internship and you say, I'm going to just give 110%, you'll get more than you expected.
Sounds good. Now, you wrote a lot. Spent a lot of time on internships. And I know we want to, if it applies to volunteers, I want to pull it over there also because we have a certain number of people who are going to college, all ages, but a lot of people are in a position where they're just interested in another career or changing from an apple to an orange. What are some other advantages? Because I know you've looked at it from all kinds of directions to doing internships or volunteers.
When you're interning, you're getting a real-world sense of what that career is like. So, for example, if I'm an accounting major and I go, I have one idea of what accounting is in the classroom, and then I go work for an accounting firm, some of the things that I'm learning in the classroom are going to be applicable, and some of them might not be.
Real world.
Real world. Some of the things that I'm learning at work might be applicable to the classroom, some might not. So it's the marrying of the academics with the work experience. So they kind of feed on each other. People who do internships have a shorter job search. There was just an article I read.
Huge. That's a huge thing.
That's very important in today's economy. That people in colleges with the tight job market are relying more heavily on their internships. Employers are going to their internship pool before they're going out and hiring people that they don't know. It's the try before you buy philosophy.
And would that even sometimes apply then to the situation where you're comparing somebody with experience, without experience, and now we have an in-between. We have an intern with experience. But you might be suggesting that in some cases the employer is going to take the intern over somebody with some experience.
Maybe. Because they know it's a known entity. It's less risky. Employers want to reduce risk.
Maybe they're very energetic and upbeat, and they're not going to make everybody hate the job.
That's right. The nice thing for the employer is if they don't like the intern, they just say, oh, it's been great having you here this semester, and they let them go. If you have a low GPA, an internship can help you with your job search and help you overcome that. People who do internships tend to be more focused. I don't think there's ever a bad internship. Even the worst of job experiences, unless it's some type of illegal activity, can be learning experiences and can help shape what a student wants to do. People who do internships tend to make more money with average starting salaries.
That's not bad either. I mean, just getting, today when you have such a huge bill to pay for college, and then you get out of college, and now some of the support systems that you had to help you get through college, suddenly they're gone. And that's a chasm that you have to step across to get to that other solid ground of getting a paycheck.
I used to tell my students, you want to start your internships as early as freshman year. I knew some of my students were coming to Siena with 1 or 2 internships already from high school, which was fantastic. Wow. So it's a little bit like Noah's Ark. It wasn't, Noah wasn't building the ark when it was raining. He built it a long time before. So if a freshman comes in and they start doing an internship and they start doing sophomore year, they will be ridiculed by their peers. Like, why are you doing that? That's, we got plenty of time for that. And then, like Noah's Ark, it starts raining. Then the seniors will come in, 3 weeks before graduation, they want to do an internship. Well, an internship is time intensive. So if you're a freshman and you've done one each semester, now you've got all this experience, especially for somebody that's 21 years old. It's very impressive. Versus somebody who may or may not have a higher GPA. You're competing in the job market. I would much rather take somebody who had a lower GPA, who went to a less prestigious school, than somebody that went to a more prestigious school, had a good GPA but no work experience. Because that's what I'm hiring them for. I'm hiring them to work, not to study for an exam.
Right, and the exam is only a signal. It's only an index that says, yes, this person can do this in this context. It doesn't say, in the real world, they're going to be able to get along with their colleagues and contribute as a team member.
Mm-hmm. And my formula is education plus experience in the form of internships plus extracurricular activities equals employment. So it's E plus E plus E equals E. Education plus experience plus extracurricular activities equals employment. So you do want to do well academically. You do want to have a couple internships. You want to be a campus leader, and you'll get a job. But a lot of people
stand out.
A lot of people just have the academics, no internships, no extracurricular activities. It's imbalanced. You've got to have each one of those things.
Well, that must be what people are recommending now, not just Tom, but if people are averaging 2 or 3 internships, that must be the thing in school.
Career center professionals are preaching this. And I think students more and more are understanding this. And it gets to a critical mass when more and more students are doing internships, and you see people on campus that are wearing coats and ties and leaving campus, and people are like, dude, where are you going? I'm going to my internship. What are you doing this afternoon? I don't know.
Drinking?
Maybe I should get an internship. And then they keep coming back to their townhouses with their roommates, and they're dressed like me. And it starts to put peer pressure on people. And then it creates a discussion, too. Like, well, now I've got 3 internships. How many do you have? I don't have any. Well, I've got a 3.0. How much? What's your GPA? 2.7. And then they might have this heated argument about the job market, which might inspire that person or encourage that person to do an internship. We're going back to what we did 200 years ago if you wanted to be a blacksmith.
That's a good point, yeah.
If you wanted to be a blacksmith, you were an apprentice first. You didn't just say, hey, I went to Yale and now I'm going to be a blacksmith. I'm just going to put out my shingle and start making horseshoes. You need that transition. I have a 10-year-old, and she's going to be doing volunteer experiences and then internships. I'm going to make sure.
She's going to start early.
She's going to start early. Yeah, next year she's working on her resume. Now,
now I want to go. We're getting close to running out of time, but we looked at the thing from the perspective of the student, the job seeker, who might volunteer or do an internship. What's in it for the organization? Because some of these organizations are new to this, right? You said you might shock them.
Right. Well, they can go to Google and type in how to set up an internship program. So,
and where's your article?
Right. I think it's on my website. There's a lot for the organization. But if the organization goes in and says, we need free labor, that's the wrong mentality to have. Again, they get out of it what they put into it. So if they have a job description, they have very structured, they have the expectations that are clear. There are problems with internships when the expectations are not clear. Like the student thinks they're going to do this, the employer thinks they're going to do this down here. When there's a lack of supervision, there starts to be problems because students are coming from a very structured environment. So whether they're just thrown in with a desk and a phone and they're not told what to do, and the supervisor is too busy doing other things, that's when you run into problems. And then the student wants to ask questions, then the supervisor says, I don't have time for you. That's when you start to run into problems. So you've got to decide what is the best experience that we could give this person. So you start them off with small responsibilities, but you've got to promise them that they're going to have more and more incrementally progressive, responsible jobs. Otherwise, they think, I'm going to be filing and photocopying for 3 months during this semester. No, I'm going to check out.
There must be a better place to go.
And you don't want to dump all the projects that you don't want to do on the intern.
And I would imagine the coordinators, there must be coordinators in the universities and colleges.
That's correct.
They're keeping notes on the companies as well. That
right.
So many students had a good experience here. You're going to love this.
Right. Well, and that's good, because sometimes a company will come and they'll say, we're looking for an intern and we'll want a job description. Some of them don't have job descriptions. So the internship coordinator is trying to educate them on how to sell that internship to the students, and that's what you're doing, because there's a lot of internships available out there. The student's thinking, I have a choice here. Why should I come and intern with you?
And I guess if we think, if I were a business owner, what could I do with an intern? But it might even be possible, I'm going on a limb here, that there would be things, let's say you run a painting store, that you might need marketing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you might start off that person with some not high responsibility duties at the organization to get to know the organization first, and then develop a marketing strategy. But it takes foresight on the employer to say, this is what we want to get out of this internship. By the end of the internship, we want a comprehensive marketing strategy that we can implement. The company gets the marketing strategy, the student gets a great experience, plus they actually get the document to use in their portfolio. Company gives them a letter of reference, student goes back to camp and said, this is a totally awesome internship. Everybody wins.
That's too many things for me to count as you went through it. 8 or 9 or 10 advantages there. One more thing, I guess, before we end. In that process that you just described, and you had said how important it was that people don't have the wrong expectations. Do you want to stress, or should we stress, that the organization, the company that wants to do this, should work a little up front to learn more about internships and volunteers before they even talk about it?
Some organizations that are growing are just simply clueless when it comes to an internship. If you're growing and you don't have the ability to hire more staff, or you don't have time to hire more staff, you kind of throw up in your hands and say, I need an intern. So you go to the campus career center and you go, I need an intern, and they say, well, what kind of responsibility is this person going to have? And they say, a lot, but I don't know what it is. So much I don't know what it is. So the employer has to get clarity on what they want. If the employer gets clarity, then they're going to get clear results. If they're confused about what they want, the intern gets confused, the results get confused, nobody happy.
So you need to do your homework.
You need to do your homework ahead of time. Maybe even looking at other organizations in your field or in other fields that have best practice internships, and then model your way. And then we got this thing called Google. You just type in how to set up an excellent internship program. It doesn't take a whole lot. You have to be serious about the internship and not just dumping administrative clerical responsibilities on the intern. That is not going to keep an intern very long.
Because I guess from what you said, you also have to count that you're going to benefit in ways that are totally legitimate. You're not taking advantage of anybody. You're learning about an employee that
right.
you might want to hire. What else did you say?
Well, this intern can be an ambassador. And many employers don't understand that. Good or bad, this person's going to be an ambassador. So wherever they are either going to sing your praises or they're going to badmouth you. So if you're giving them a great experience, they're going to go back to campus, but they're also going to go and tell other people in the community how great of an employer is. If they are not getting the responsibilities that they're looking for, it's like paying for bad advertising. You might as well say, I hate this company. It doesn't do this and it doesn't do that, and they're not doing this for me. I mean, why have one? It'd be better not to have one.
I think we've pretty much sold the idea. I hope so. And
Internships is the key to job searching for college students.
You've got some things on your website, right?
I do have some things on my website.
How can people find it?
And people can either call me at 366-8451. I'd be happy to talk to them about internships, how to set up an internship program, and I also have some handouts that I'd be happy to mail people. So it's 366-8451, or they can email me at careersintransition@yahoo.com, and my website is careersintransitionllc.com.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Put another brick in the wall.
Very important.
Here.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
My pleasure.
And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's show and that you tune in again next time. In the meantime, have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.